Hello there, Steve-Os, and welcome to my August 2023 movie wrap-up video. In this video, I'm going to be going through all the movies that I've watched in August 2023 and giving you my thoughts and opinions on each movie as we go along. And of course, I'll give you my star rating that I've given them as well via Letterboxd as well. So let's begin, and we're going to start with the 4th of August 2023. That's when I started watching movies this month, and I started off by watching The New Mutants over on Disney Plus. So this movie got released way back in 2020 during the pandemic. It was a movie that I missed out watching back then due to the ongoing pandemic, but I have finally given this movie a watch in the year 2023, and it turns out I wasn't really missing out on a lot aside from great acting from Anya Taylor-Joy and Maisie Williams, which is why I have given this film a 2-star rating. But aside from this, I didn't really enjoy this a lot, and I haven't even heard of the director who directed this film neither. But I should also point out that there were some scenes that weren't really necessary or just were plain silly, and the CGI in some scenes also looked rather off as well. So that's my thoughts on The New Mutants. The next movie that I watched was, again, over on Disney Plus. It's called Chevalier. Now, this one I gave a 3.5-star rating on Letterboxd. Chevalier is a very outstanding film, which I really enjoyed. I'm not one for historical biopics about historical figures. The only biopics that I tend to watch is from musicians, from the likes of Elton John, Queen, and Whitney Houston. However, though, this is really well played and performed throughout from such a great cast like Samara Weaving and Kelvin Harrison Jr. What I also loved all throughout this film was the absolutely beautiful music scoring, which is all throughout the film. It's so rich and so beautiful. I didn't see this in cinemas. However, though, I feel as though I missed out watching this sooner, because this film is absolutely fantastic, and I would recommend people to not miss this movie out. I believe in the US it's streaming on Hulu, and elsewhere around the world it's streaming on Disney Plus. The Equalizer. I kind of gave this, The Equalizer a 2-star rating on Letterboxd, but I do wonder, now thinking about it, whether it was worth me actually raising it up to maybe 3 stars or even 4 stars, to be honest with you. But this film was semi-decent. I wouldn't say that this film franchise I've been wanting to watch for a while. The only reason I've decided to watch the Equalizer movies is because there is a 3rd installment coming out. And actually it did come out at the end of August, but I did put in my review on Letterboxd that it was coming out in September. So towards the end of this video, I'll give you my thoughts on The Equalizer 3. But, however, though, the movie stars David Harbour, Denzel Washington, and Chloe Grace Moretz. And I'll be honest, while the characters in this film are underdeveloped, hoping they have more development in the sequel, which, by the way, I don't think they did. I don't even think most of the characters were in the sequel. Anyway, I didn't know much. Look, I didn't know much about this film franchise, okay? I thought these characters were going to carry on into the sequel. But I feel as though the plot is also a little far-fetched. However, though, I did love the use of slow motion in some of the action sequences throughout the film, which I thought was awesome, okay? So I did appreciate the film for that. But I do wonder, though, if maybe 2 stars was a little bit, I don't know, a little bit too harsh for the movie. I'm not really too sure. But anyway, but yeah, that's my thoughts on The Equalizer. The next movie that I watched was obviously the sequel to The Equalizer, which of course is The Equalizer 2. And again, I gave this movie a 2-star rating on Letterboxd as well. The Equalizer 2 was an okay movie. I wouldn't say it was good, and I wouldn't say it was bad movie neither. The film stars Denzel Washington once again, and also stars Pedro Pascal as well. But this doesn't have as much action as the first one did. Kind of hoping that they ramp up the action in the upcoming third movie. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be honest. Unlike The Equalizer, where I just said that, I feel like maybe I should have bumped that up by 1 star or 2 stars or something, because it was a fairly decent first movie. I kind of agree with the star rating I've given Equalizer 2, which is just 2 stars, because, yeah, it's just, there wasn't really a lot of action in that one. I also started watching the Expendable franchise as well. The reason being is because there is a 4th movie in the franchise, which is going to be coming out in September. And of course, I can confirm that I will be giving you my thoughts and opinions on Expendables 4 at the end of September when I do my September movie roundup. But the Expendables, though, I have given it a watch. I gave it a 2-star rating on Letterboxd. Decided to give the Expendables a watch before the 4th installment in the franchise comes out in September. And this is just a bunch of men from various action movies coming together to create an action movie. And while the premise might sound interesting, the movie itself isn't too great. There's a lot of shaky camera work, and there is also a lot of scenes in this movie which are really well underlit. This is a really terrible action movie to sit and watch for around an hour and a half. Yeah, literally. I know that sounds a bit too harsh, but I mean, I'm just saying the truth. I'm just saying the truth. The final movie that I did watch on the 4th of August 2023, honestly, I watched a lot of movies that day, trust me, was The Expendables 2. Now, unlike The Expendables where I gave it a 2-star rating, I gave Expendables 2 a 3-star rating. This movie was a far lot more enjoyable than the first movie, which sometimes is very rare to find when it comes to sequels. However, though, the things that were better than its predecessor was the lighting had been far more improved. Maybe they took on the feedback from fans and critics alike about the first movie and obviously improved the lighting in the second one. The action throughout the film was far much better choreographed than the first film, and the violence in this was on another level, and it was a lot more bloodier. I really enjoyed this one with a great cast such as Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham and Arnold Schwarzenegger as well. I can't wait to see what the third installment has to offer when I do get round to watching that at a later date. So yeah, definitely worth the 3-star rating. Now, I'm now moving on to movies that I watched on the 5th of August 2023, and I'll be honest with you, again, like the 4th of August, I watched a ton of movies on the 5th of August. So we're going to start with this one here, which is a horror comedy movie titled The Blackening. I enjoyed this film and thought that the cast members played their respective characters rather well and gave off really good chemistry and good vibes with each other throughout this horror comedy movie. There is a lot of laugh out loud moments as well, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I gave this movie a 3-star rating over on Letterboxd as well. I would say if you are somebody that is into horror comedy movies, do check this one out because it is a great movie to watch. After watching The Blackening, I then moved on to the next installment in the Expendables franchise, which of course is the Expendables 3. I gave this movie a 2-star rating over on Letterboxd. I feel as though the first one was terrible, the sequel's great, and then we are graced with the third movie, and it turns out it's just absolutely terrible again. Just terrible acting from those involved in this film and terrible script writing, dialogue. I would say the only decent thing about this movie was the last half an hour, which is just full of action and great music scoring as well. Expendables 4 comes out in September, and I'm really hoping that this movie will be better than the third movie I've just watched. And I'm not going to lie, but I've seen the trailer for the Expendables 4 quite a few times now over the last couple of weeks. I've been going to the cinema, and it does look pretty decent, so I'm kind of holding out hope that the Expendables 4 is going to get back onto track. It's going to be really weird if you've got the Expendables, terrible movie, Expendables 2, great movie, Expendables 3, terrible movie again, and then we have Expendables 4, which then becomes a great movie again. Honestly, I'm going to be so baffled at the way how they've done this movie franchise if that's going to be the case. I then started watching a couple of classic horror movies that I've never seen before, and actually the next two movies was actually recommended to me by my friend Kieran as well. So the first one, obviously you can see the poster right here, is the Reanimator. So Reanimator is a film I recently was recommended to watch, as I've never seen it before until now. And what I will say about this film is, even though this was made in the mid-80s, the special effects and the makeup in this is really good. And I would also say that there are a lot of great gore scenes in this as well. There's a couple of scenes which are rather disturbing, but aside from this, a really great film that I enjoyed watching so much. And if you are a horror fan and you've never seen Reanimator or the next movie that I'm about to talk to you guys about, honestly, do give them a watch. They are available to buy and rent on digital platforms and stuff. So honestly, feel free to give those a watch, because they are classic horror films, but at the same time, they are great horror films. I did give this movie a 4-star rating over on Letterboxd. And the next movie that I got recommended by my friend Kieran was From Beyond. And to be honest with you, you could easily watch Reanimator and From Beyond, and it would make a great double feature back-to-back kind of horror movie. Even my friend Kieran has said this to me as well, and I do agree with him. Both movies make great back-to-back kind of horror movie features. But so From Beyond, I gave a 4-star rating over on Letterboxd. And after watching Reanimator, I decided to give From Beyond a watch, which was released a year later after Reanimator. So obviously Reanimator came out in 1985, this came out in 1986. And it was also another movie that was recommended to me by a friend of mine, which of course was Kieran. Again, another classic 80s movie with a great music scoring, making certain scenes very eerie and creepy. And also, I absolutely love the gore and special effects used in this movie. It's also got one of the actors in this film who was also one of who was one of the main characters in Reanimator as well. But overall, really enjoyed this film, and will agree with my friend Kieran that if you're going to watch this, then watch Reanimator first before watching From Beyond as a back-to-back double feature. It makes the movie experience even more fun. And yeah, I totally agree. The final movie that I watched on the 5th of August 2023, I ended it on such a terrible film. It was called The Black Demon, and I gave this film a 1-star rating. Needless to say, it's a shark movie. I'm not a fan of shark movies. This seems like a really terrible movie, and it was a terrible movie. I just really couldn't get into the film, and the shark looked really bad on screen as well. Terrible movie, and I'm not gonna lie, I switched it off halfway through, and I wouldn't recommend this movie to anyone. I'm not gonna lie. 1-star rated film. Anyway, if you think that, you know, that I've given movies less than 1-star ratings in this movie wrap-up video, then I have. Spoiler alert, I've given movies half a star rating, which we'll dive into a little bit later on. No pun intended there, by the way. The next movie that I went and watched, which was on the 9th of August 2023, was Meg 2, The Trench. Now, I'm not going to lie, again, similar to The Black Demon, I gave it a 1-star rating on Letterboxd. So I'll give you my thoughts on the Meg 2 with no spoiler context here, okay? Nothing happens. Fight scene. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Explosion. Nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. Yeah, this movie sucks and is so boring, which is such a shame because I really enjoyed the 2018 original Meg movie. It just seems so unrealistic, stupid and pathetic. The only thing this movie was missing was Chris Pratt to help with the land sea creatures, because if he was cast in this movie, then it could easily pass off as a Jurassic World movie, and the plot just seemed to be so messy and just have no direction neither. The only reason why I gave this film a 1-star rating is because they have a great soundtrack from the likes of Queen and Gorillaz. But aside from this, I don't recommend this film, and I wouldn't waste my time watching this movie because it wasn't even entertaining or funny in any way neither. It was just so dumb and ridiculous. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So, the next movie that I did watch, which actually was on the same day, I did watch Meg 2 The Trench in cinemas, and straight after Meg 2 The Trench, I then watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which I did give a 4-star rating over on Letterboxd. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem takes a leaf out of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse / Across the Spider-Verse book and gives the audience a thrilling mix of 2D and 3D animation, which was absolutely amazing to see on the big screen. I love the use of both 2D and 3D effects on screen for animation. The voice acting cast members played all of their roles really well, and the story itself had some heart about it. It was about acceptance and where you fit in the world, which I thought was really nice. There was a few jokes in this film which I enjoyed as well, and I'm really glad that this movie has a sequel on the way, as well as a TV show which ties in with the movies. There is a mid-credits scene as well, which does help follow up what to expect in the upcoming sequel or TV show, whichever project comes first. But safe to say, I'll be watching both projects when they come out. I also love the use of the soundtrack as well, which I thought was really awesome. I then watched a couple of movies on the 12th of August 2023 and started off with watching Insidious The Red Door, which is the 5th movie and possibly the final movie in the franchise as well. So I watched Insidious The Red Door at long last because it has been out for quite some considerable time. And remind me to never jump into an MRI scan machine, because that scene scared the hell out of me, okay? Honestly, if you've seen the movie, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't yet seen the movie, then give it a watch. You'll get the reference once you get to that specific scene. Also, why the hell did Dalton say that he's eaten oatmeal with no water or milk before? Ladies, don't date a Dalton, okay? If he eats dried oatmeal, that's a red flag right there. But in terms of the movie itself, great film. I would say that this one is up there with the first one. Absolutely loved the music scoring to make the film very creepy in places, and loved the acting performances between Patrick Wilson and Ty Simpkins, who plays Josh and Dalton respectively. A really great movie to end the franchise on, and I think James Wan and Jason Blum nailed the jump scares in places, because there were some scenes which I was not expecting. And also as well, can I just add here that I also love the fact that they also included a bit of comedy into this as well, which I loved. But yeah, Insidious The Red Door, I gave a 3-star rating over on Letterboxd. Now, the next movie that I watched was Cobweb, which I gave a 3.5-star rating to over on Letterboxd. Now, to be honest with you, I would have preferred this film to have came out at Halloween, given the fact that the premise is around Halloween. But so it kind of felt weird for me to watch this horror movie based at Halloween in the middle of August. You know, it just kind of felt a bit weird. But anyway, that's the only issue I had with it being released then. But the movie itself, though, got around to watching Cobweb, and this movie is fantastic for the most part. I loved the fact that the main character in the film, Peter, could somewhat confide in his substitute teacher, which I thought was very nice, but also loved the lighting in this film. They used silhouettes lighting for the parents and the creature as well, which I thought was a good use of horror. Also something we don't tend to often see in horror neither. I loved how the film did hold back from showing us the creature until the very end. And when we see the creature, I did think the design of said creature is very creepy. There was also some creepy scenes in this film, and a lot of the horror aspect, I would say, does happen within the third act. The only thing is you see a lot of blood, however, though, you don't see a lot of horror, sadly. I wasn't a fan of the ending, though. I felt the ending could have been better, although it does make me wonder whether they could have set this up for a potential sequel. I have no idea, but I do still recommend this horror movie for its creepiness. Okay, so yeah, so that's my thoughts on Cobweb, which I gave 3.5-star rating to over on Letterboxd. I then started watching a couple of movies on the 13th of August 2023, and I started off with a movie which is actually not recent. Well, it's kind of recent, but not recent at the same time. I'm talking about this movie here called Mother. Now, this movie I gave 4-star rating to. It's kind of like a psychological thriller starring Jennifer Lawrence. I really enjoyed this movie so much because of how crazy things got in the third act of the film. While I thought it was a slow burn at first, the third act really picks things up, and when it does, some really crazy stuff happens. I don't know what's going on with my camera there, but there we go. It's been going on for quite a while now. So there we go. Yeah, so some crazy stuff happens, and you're sat there thinking, how the hell and what the hell is going on in this couple's house? I must say that Jennifer Lawrence does an outstanding job in this movie, and I will say that the ending is rather odd and rather confusing at the same time. I honestly just didn't know what was going on. But aside from this, a really great 2-hour movie, which I recommend to people who haven't seen this yet. It is a great movie. It's just, there's just some bits in this which is mind-boggling and really confusing, and it's making you think, what the hell is going on? Because I got lost. I really did get lost. Now, the next movie I watched, which, by the way, I gave a 4-star rating to over on Letterboxd, is called The Descent. Now, this movie came out about 18-odd years ago. It's really funny, actually, because I was going to watch a YouTuber react to this movie, and I started to, but then I thought, actually, this is a movie that I wanted to watch, so let me go and watch this movie first, and then I'm going to go and watch her reaction to the video. The movie. The video, the YouTuber I'm talking about, by the way, is a YouTuber called She's Scared. She does reactions to horror movies. I got shown her YouTube channel by my friend Damon a little while ago, and every time she releases a new horror movie reaction video now, I kind of sit there and watch her react to them, because honestly, some of her reactions are priceless. But anyway, more to the point though, The Descent, I gave it a 4-star rating over on Letterboxd, and I enjoyed The Descent. I was about to watch a YouTuber, as I've just mentioned, react to this movie on their channel, but before watching their reaction to the film, I wanted to watch it first, so I decided to rent this movie via Prime Video, and I thought it was a great movie. I loved the use of lighting that we saw throughout the movie, with the red lighting, orange lighting, and the green lighting as well. Also loved the use of the infrared camera throughout the movie as well. I also love the design of the creatures, which I found out when the credits rolled were called crawlers. The ending is a little confusing and at the same time slightly mind-blowing as well, but I won't spoil the ending for those who haven't seen this movie yet. The movie can also cause the audience to feel a little claustrophobic as well, especially as the ladies involved in the film are going through the cave and through the small holes throughout the cave as well. I'm not claustrophobic, but this movie made me feel claustrophobic at times. The next movie that I watched is a movie called Ennie's Men. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I think I'm pronouncing it as Ennie's Men, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. I don't know. But I've been wanting to check this one out after watching the trailer, and while this is dubbed as a folk horror, I was getting the same vibes as I did when I watched the movie Skinamarink, which was that for the most part of the movie, I was bored throughout the film because the film didn't have dialogue and it just felt like I was watching the same scenes happen over and over again. But however, this film isn't all bad though. What I did like and appreciate about this film is that it's only an hour and a half and is not longer than that. I also love the fact that the scenery in this movie was stunning and the camera work was absolutely amazingly shot. The entire film itself was shot on a 16mm 1970 Bolex camera, so it definitely does give off a 1970s movie style vibe, with its graininess added to the camera, and also does make the audience believe that they are watching a film from the 1970s, even though the film was made in 2023. I also love the fact that when there was audio in this, it went with the movie. So again, it made the audiences feel like they were watching a film out of the 70s. While I appreciate it for some of the technical stuff in the movie, it's a shame that for the most part of the movie, I found it to be rather boring and not a lot happened in the film. If it had a decent story and probably a little more added horror, then I would have loved and appreciated this movie a lot more. I gave this movie a 2-star rating over on Letterboxd. The next movie that I watched came out back in 2016, and I watched this on the 14th of August 2023. It's Assassin's Creed, which I gave a 1-star rating to over on Letterboxd. So I haven't played the games before, but I'm sure the games are a lot more and feel a lot more cinematic than the movie does. I felt like the plot is a little dull, dumb, and weak, and also the pacing was all over the place too. Maybe I should use a computer machine to go back 500 years to my ancestors to find the man that I have become today. Yes, I'm talking about the plot of the film. That was a reference to the plot of the film. The next movie that I did watch on the 14th of August was Dune. Now, obviously, for those that don't know, Dune Part 2 was originally going to be released later this year on November 3rd. It recently got pushed back due to the writers and actors strikes, and now it's being released on March 15th, 2024. Now, not going to lie, I'm going to talk about Dune right now, and I'll very quickly just dive into Dune Part 2 very quickly, okay, once I've done my review for Dune. But I gave Dune a 4-star rating over on Letterboxd. This is such a stunning masterpiece of a movie. I really enjoyed this a lot and loved the castings that were involved in this movie. It honestly did feel like I was there in the movie, and it felt like all the set designs and the modes of transport that you see within the movie are all real modes of transport. It's like a futuristic sci-fi movie set in the desert. The only thing that makes this film different compared to other sci-fi films that I've seen in the past is that you don't see any of these laser guns being shot at anyone. I also loved the use of the soundtrack as well. The scoring for this was so good. I honestly cannot wait to see what Part 2 has to offer. But I do feel bad for not seeing the first one in cinemas, because I'm sure when this movie came out nearly 2 years ago in cinemas, it was a cinematic experience for everyone. Honestly, when Dune Part 2 comes out in March 2024, I'm definitely going to be going to see it, and I can't wait. I can't wait to get back into it. I probably might go back and rewatch Dune before seeing Part 2 again in March next year, just so that I can kind of go back and remember what happened in this movie, and then obviously go straight into Part 2 with a kind of a fresh mind or a fresh memory as to what happened in part one. There is also kind of rumours that the director, who's directed the first and second one, might also be doing a part 3. He might want to make this into a trilogy. And if the second one does do well at the box office, and I like the second one as well as I like the first one, I'd be happy for him to make a third one, and maybe it might be the final one in the trilogy as well. The next movie that I watched was Shadow in the Cloud, which I gave 3-star rating to on Letterboxd. So watch Shadow in the Cloud on Amazon Prime Video, and even though this movie has been out a fair few years, it came out back in 2020, it's my first time watching it. I am going to give it some credit because it does deserve the credit. The main actress in this movie, Chloe Grace Moretz, is great in the film. I often find her great in other roles that she does in other movies, but the fact that she's the lead in this movie is perfect casting. I also love the design of the gremlin creature that we see during the movie as well. So, thought that was great. The only issue that I had with the movie was the fact that the last 20 minutes just fell flat and fell apart, which I didn't like. If it had a strong ending, I feel I would have given this movie a 4-star rating rather than a 3-star rating. What I also love about this film is that it does also have a short running time, therefore it's an easy watch as well. Okay, so we are now on to the 15th of August 2023, and I started off that day with watching Babysitter Must Die, which I gave 2.5-star rating to over on Letterboxd. And the reason being is because, I'll admit this is a somewhat decent movie. It did have me intrigued and hooked all throughout the film. The film is set around Christmas time, so this is an ideal horror movie to watch at Christmas, similar to another Christmas horror called Better Watch Out. However, though, there's a few issues that I did have with some of the dialogue throughout the film. It also just felt a little random, and at first I had no clue as to why these strangers were randomly holding up this entire family. The babysitter, though, certainly knew at times how to kick ass. I felt the ending was a little rushed, and the movie ended abruptly as well. This movie does have a very short running time, though, at 75 minutes, so it is literally an hour and 15 minutes long. The next movie that I watched was Alice Darling, which I gave 4-star rating to over on Letterboxd. Now, unexpectedly, I actually really enjoyed this movie. Such an easy watch with an hour and a half running time, but it also deals with a domestic abuse storyline, which with such sensitivity and care. I think casting Anna Kendrick in this film was a perfect casting. She handles the character of Alice, who is at the centre of domestic abuse, really well, and this is probably the first role I've seen her in which she has a serious side to. I've mostly seen her in more of the fun roles, so it was really nice to see her tackle something a lot more serious. There was some light moments in this where we see Alice have some fun with her girlfriends, and I think that was really nicely done. I will also say that the music scoring in this is so beautiful as well, and so soothing as well. The next movie that I watched was You Hurt My Feelings, which I gave a 3-star rating to. This is literally a movie about couples hurting each other's feelings, like literally. I really don't know what's going on with my camera here. But yeah, like literally, this title is exactly what happens in the movie. It's not a bad movie per se, and there was some funny moments in this movie, but I wouldn't say this is a film that people should rush out to see. I mean, it is on Amazon Prime Video if you are intrigued to watch it, but for me, it just felt like it was just genuinely a film about people hurting each other's feelings. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's why I kind of gave it a 3-star rating. The next movie that I watched was Dunkirk, which I gave a 4-star rating to over on Letterboxd. There aren't many war films that I have seen. I have seen 1917, which is a war film, which I really enjoyed and thought it was shot in a rather unique way. I do have another war film that I have on my letterbox watch list that I'm planning to watch soon, which is Inglourious Bastards. It is on Netflix here in the UK. So that review will be coming very soon. And obviously it's not going to be coming up in this video, sadly. It's going to be coming up in my next movie wrap-up video, which will be in September, end of September. But for now, though, let's talk about Dunkirk. Following the success of Oppenheimer, which was directed by Christopher Nolan, I decided to go back and have a look at some of Nolan's other previous work. Before watching Oppenheimer in cinemas in July, I had only seen 3 of his other projects, which was the Batman trilogy he had done. I now find myself to believe that Nolan is such a unique director, full of cinematic themes in his movies. After watching Dunkirk, I was amazed because of the way it was shot, and the way the story was told, and the way he casts his characters in his movies. You had the likes of Harry Styles and Cillian Murphy in this film, which is really good to see, and nice to see Harry Styles, which I believe that this was one of his first acting projects before joining the MCU and doing Don't Worry Darling. But I thought his acting when we did see him on screen was really good, really great as well. Really enjoyed this movie, and I felt like I was on the edge of my seat throughout the entire time as well. This kind of felt like a horror movie within itself, except there was none of the scary monster factor to go with it. It just felt like a war movie that had its own scare factor to make it its own horror movie, which I also really enjoyed as well. The next movie that I watched, which was on the 16th of August 2023, was Haunted Mansion. This Disney's Haunted Mansion, the new one. Obviously, they've got one that came out 20 odd years ago, which had Eddie Murphy in it. They did one about 2 years ago on Disney Plus, which was about the Muppets going into the Haunted Mansion. They've now done basically a remake of the Haunted Mansion again. And this one came out in cinemas in August, so I went and watched this, I believe on opening day. But I gave this movie a 3.5-star rating on Letterboxd. This is one of those rare Disney films that I actually enjoyed. There is some jokes in here which surprisingly I did enjoy. I know why they released this movie in August, so that it can be released on digital at the end of September, and then probably be rolled out onto Disney Plus in October. So I'll safely assume this movie will be on Disney Plus globally sometime in October. However, though, the movie does have some jokes which I really enjoyed, and a huge stellar of a cast that includes Jamie Lee Curtis, Owen Wilson, Tiffany Haddish, Danny DeVito, and Jared Leto. I also love the fact that this movie did have some heart to the story as well. The next movie that I watched was Charlie Says, which I gave 2.5-star rating on Letterboxd. A movie that I have been wanting to watch for quite a while now, and I finally got round to watching it. I enjoyed Matt Smith's performance in this movie, which is actually the reason why I've been wanting to watch this movie for a while, is to see Matt Smith. I know he has done some great roles previously, especially in TV shows like House of the Dragon and Doctor Who, as well as movies like Last Night in Soho. Should I mention Morbius as well? Maybe. But he was quite terrifying in this movie, which for me made it even more enjoyable. And I couldn't help but get this weird feeling that the 3 girls in this movie look like the girl group Haim. I had to check to make sure it wasn't them in this movie, and safe to say it isn't. The next movie that I watched was Joy, which is on Disney Plus and stars Jennifer Lawrence. However, though, I gave this movie a 2.5-star rating over on Letterboxd. So I basically watched 2 hours of a film that's basically the invention of the mop. What I can say, though, is this did get one of the lead actresses, Jennifer Lawrence, an Oscar, and I can safely say she deserved that Oscar because her performance in this was excellent and was well worth the watch. Also love the fact that this movie also stars Bradley Cooper as well. So, the next movie that I watched was on the 17th of August 2023. This movie I saw in the cinemas, of course. It's Gran Turismo, based on a true story. I gave this a rating of 3 stars over on Letterboxd. This was an okay movie. I did somewhat enjoy this film. Based on a true story, it tells the story of how a gaming racer who's not doing much with his life and spends most of his time in his bedroom playing the racing game Gran Turismo on his PlayStation ends up becoming a very successful racer on the racetrack in real life. I love David Harbour's character in this movie. I thought David Harbour was great in the movie, and I did also love the soundtrack behind this as well. I don't know how I felt about the on-screen game graphics making its way into the races, and when Jan and his friends are trying to get away from the police in one part of the... in one part of me loved it, the other part of me felt like it was a little too corny as well. I think if you're an avid gaming racer like me, then you'll enjoy this movie. If not, someone who likes video games or racing games in particular, then you probably won't enjoy this movie as much. I will say that some of the races felt a little rushed as well, and some just ended up being in the form of a montage. I guess they did this because they wanted to get as much racing action as they could in the space of a 2-hour movie, and there wasn't as much time they could put all the races into the movie, especially with the last race being around 24 hours with 150 laps. Now, the next movie I watched, again on the 17th of August, was Sympathy for the Devil, which stars Nicolas Cage. This is probably the most deranged performance I have seen of Nick Cage I have seen, and yet I loved every single moment of it, to the point that I just couldn't look away from the screen throughout this film. I really enjoyed this a lot, and there is some gory moments in this as well, which I love too. There's a couple more Nicolas Cage movies to come in 2023, which I can't wait to see him in, but this film is definitely worth the watch, and I definitely recommend you to watch it if you're looking for a thriller to see. Now, the other 2 films that he is going to be starring in is Dream Scenario, which is by A24, and there's another movie coming out soon as well called The Retirement Plan as well. But I did give this movie a 4-star rating over on Letterboxd. The next movie I watched was Hidden Strike, and I gave this a 1.5-star rating over on Letterboxd. When I first saw the trailer to this, I was looking forward to watching this because it somewhat looked funny. Then I found out it was coming to Netflix instead of being released theatrically, which I thought was originally the plan. But either way, I didn't mind so long as I got to see this movie. I was happy. Now that I've seen this movie, I'm not really happy with it. The only thing that I really loved about this film was the stunning visuals, and that's the only thing I could pretty much take away from this film. Everything else about this was just trash. John Cena and Jackie Chan, who star in this film, have no chemistry whatsoever. I just couldn't connect with both characters, and also the dialogue was just really awful too. I think I'll just stick to appreciating the trailer for the way that looks and just try and forget that this movie ever existed. On the 18th of August 2023, I then watched a couple more movies, and I'm starting off with the film Puppy Love, which I gave a 4.5-star rating over on Letterboxd. It stars Lucy Hale as well. I absolutely love this movie so much. I'm not someone who really digs the whole rom-com kind of films genre, but this is one of those rare ones that made me smile and laugh all throughout the movie. The film stars Grant Gustin and Lucy Hale, and the film is available on Amazon Freevee. I will say that this film is just full of cuteness overload, especially when you see the dogs. The next movie that I watched on the 18th of August was Bad Things, which is a Shudder original movie. Now, I gave this movie a 1.5-star rating. I tried my best, and I mean my very best, to enjoy this movie, but sadly, this just didn't click with me. It's great that they showed the LGBT representation in this movie, which is always great to see movies like this be inclusive. However, though, I just couldn't connect with the characters, and while there was some psychological elements to the film, I just felt as though this film just didn't have enough horror in there to please me as a horror fan. It just felt like an hour and a half of a movie that was a really slow burn and just had little bits of horror elements in there every now and then to remind the audience that this is a horror movie that they're watching. The next movie that I watched was Trolls. So this movie I gave 3.5 stars to. This is a fairly decent family animated movie made by DreamWorks, well known for doing movies like How to Train Your Dragon and Shrek. I thought it was a very colourful and vibrant movie, and there's jokes in here which aren't just funny for kids, but funny for adults alike as well. There's also some very catchy songs in this film again. Songs that you could go back to and listen to over and over again on Spotify or other music streaming services. Really enjoyed this movie and can't wait to watch the sequel next. I know there's a third one coming in the second half of 2023, and I will be seeing that in cinemas as soon as it does get released. And of course, after watching Trolls, I then watched Trolls World Tour, which is the sequel to Trolls. I gave this movie a 3-star rating. I love how this movie says in the synopsis that Queen Poppy and Branch make a surprising discovery. There is other troll worlds beyond their own. It's kind of like saying, hey dude, guess what? The multiverse exists, and there's various other versions of yourself in another dimension or another timeline. Anyways, this movie, which is again another family-friendly movie, mainly aimed at children, is a great sequel. Loved the mashup of songs at the beginning of the movie. I thought that was a load of fun. And also loved the fact that, once again, it shows with its bright and vibrant, colourful moments in the movie. I really am looking forward to watching the third one when it releases in October 2023. And of course, I will give you guys my thoughts and opinions on Trolls Band Together, which is the third one in the movie franchise. I'll give you my thoughts on that in my October wrap-up when I've seen the movie in October. Moving on, and we are going on to Strays, which I watched in cinemas on the 23rd of August 2023. Now, this film I did give 2.5 stars to. This film wasn't too bad in my honest opinion. Yes, there was some problems with the special effects when the eagle picks up one of the dogs and then 2 of the dogs end up falling through the branches of the trees. I will say that the beginning of the movie felt like I was watching the trailer all over again, and the plot of Reggie, the main dog, becoming a stray was a little too rushed. However, though, this film is only an hour and a half, so they were really cutting it with the timing. But this film did have me laughing hard at some scenes that we didn't see in the trailer, and for the most part, there was a lot of cliche dog jokes in this as well. Will I watch this again? I probably will. Will I buy it on digital? There's a likely chance that I will. On the 25th of August 2023, I went and watched Blue Beetle at the cinema, which I gave a 2-star rating to. Did I watch Fast and Furious by mistake? I swear that this movie mentioned the word family more times than a Fast and Furious movie does. Also, loud noise in background. The character Jenny says, "Do you hear that?" Well, I bloody hope the characters could hear the loud chopper noise in the background, because I sure did, and I wasn't even in the movie. Secondly, what was this line all about? The character Jaime says, "It's like Batman, if Batman had ADHD or something." I really don't get why they would add that line in the film. Made no sense to me whatsoever. However, though, this movie isn't all bad. Yes, there were moments where my brain switched off from the movie, but there was some actual decent moments in this film, especially when it came to the action sequences. I thought they were pretty solid, although there were times where I kind of felt like I was in a rave or something with all the flashing lights appearing on screen. Did not sit too well with me, but the VFX was actually better than I expected, probably way better than The Flash, of course. I think the main actor who plays Blue Beetle did do a good job playing as the character, and he did put a lot of heart into this. I would say as well, George Lopez is another standout and did make me laugh throughout the film too. I am intrigued to see where they are planning to take Blue Beetle in the future, especially with the way how they set up for a potential sequel in the mid-credits scene in the future. All in all, it is probably one of the better DC movies of recent, and I did somewhat enjoy this movie. However, there is one other issue I want to dive into before wrapping up this review, and that's, I can tell DC took some ideas from their previous entries and maybe some previous Marvel entries and put it into this film. The bus being cut in half kind of reminds me of a scene in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The parts where Jaime is nude after wearing the suit, I kind of think was taken from the Flash movie. And also another thing taken from the Flash was the electro bits that came off the suit. To me, this also felt like a generic love story as well. Guy is attracted to a woman, they are about to kiss halfway through the movie, then get interrupted, then get to the end of the movie, and, well, I think you get an idea before I go into spoiler territory. Just in case I didn't say what rating I gave Blue Beetle, I gave it a 2-star rating. Anyway, moving on to the next one. I went and watched The Dive, and I gave this movie a 1-star rating. This was actually one of the films that I was looking forward to seeing in August. And the reason being is because it was made by the same people behind the movie Fall. Now, Fall is one of the films that came out last year. It's actually one of my favourite movies of the year from 2022. But The Dive, however, I gave it a 1-star rating. This was just Fall, but underwater. This kind of bored me at times, and the sister who we followed for most of the film, Drew, was just making some really dumb decisions as well. It did have some tense moments in the film. However, though, it did prove me wrong. I went into this film thinking this would have a tragic ending, similar to what Fall did. But I was wrong. It was a nice 90-minute film, though. So if diving is for you, then I recommend this film, as it'll be an easy watch. But for me, this didn't really sit well, and I'm not gonna lie, but for the majority of the film, I can't even remember what even happened in this film. It's quite a forgettable movie. The next movie that I watched was over on Netflix, and it was titled You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. This movie I gave a 3.5-star rating to. This was a very decent comedy, coming-of-age movie, which I feel as though is a fantastic movie for teenagers to watch. Love the fact that Adam Sandler and his daughters were in this movie as well. I loved all the songs that they used throughout the movie as well. It's just filled with so much pop culture, and it's definitely a fun movie that you can all enjoy watching on Netflix. I definitely recommend this movie for anyone looking for a comedy movie to watch. Again, like I say, I gave this film a 3.5-star rating, and the movie is available to watch right now over on Netflix. The next movie that I watched, which was over on Disney Plus worldwide and on Hulu in the United States, is Vacation Friends 2. Now, I gave this movie a 3-star rating. I somewhat enjoyed this movie, not as much as the first one. I thought the first one that came out about 2 years ago was a lot funnier than this one. This one had a little bit more action in this. And there was a few funny moments in this movie, which I did at times laugh out loud at. But I do have a feeling that if a sequel wasn't made, I would have been okay with Vacation Friends being a one and only movie, and that was it. The next movie I watched, which was on the 27th of August 2023, was, I don't know if it's Stillborn or Still/Born. I don't know how you're pronouncing it, but I'm going to go with Stillborn. I gave this movie a 3-star rating over on Letterboxd. I somewhat enjoyed this movie about a grieving mother who loses one of her twins at birth, and we basically follow her journey being a mum to a baby after losing his twin. We do, as an audience, kind of question whether the things happening in her home are actually happening, or is it all in her head? Is there a demon really coming after her baby? I thought the actress that plays the mother in this did a great job, and although there wasn't anything new in terms of horror in this movie that hasn't been done in other supernatural horror movies before, I still had an enjoyable time watching this movie. And again, like I say, I gave this movie a 3-star rating. Now, the next movie, the next 2 movies that I watched are actually a franchise, because there's the third one which is coming out in September. And so I thought, you know what, I might as well go back and check these movies out, because I've never seen them before. The first movie came out back in 2002, so I'm about 21 years late to the party. But My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I gave this movie a 2-star rating over on Letterboxd. This film came out roughly 21 years ago, which is mad to think that I have never seen this movie, but because My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 is coming out in cinemas and theatres worldwide in September, I thought I would give this a watch. And to be honest, I didn't really enjoy this movie too much. I just felt like the comedy didn't resonate with me in any way. However, though, I can see why a lot of users on Letterboxd and on other movie reviewing websites did enjoy this movie for themselves, because there is some quotable moments in this as well, where a lot of users I've seen review this movie kind of quote in their reviews, so there is some quotable moments in the movie, but for me, the comedy just didn't resonate with me at all. Now, you know, I said earlier in the video that there is a movie in this video that I've given a 0.5-star review to. Well, it's this one right here, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. Now, given the fact that, you know, I gave My Big Fat Greek Wedding a 2-star rating, and then the sequel a 0.5-star rating, which is the lowest rating you can give a movie on Letterboxd, obviously that's an indication to say that you can safely say I enjoyed the first movie, even though I didn't enjoy it as much, but I enjoyed the first movie more, or appreciated the movie more than I did the second one. Anyway, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, I gave this a 0.5-star rating on Letterboxd, and even though I didn't enjoy the first one, I thought I would give the sequel a watch. And again, it didn't resonate with me. The comedy was just unfunny, and there was only one actor in this movie who I recognised, which was John Stamos. I didn't recognise any of the other cast members in this movie as well as the third one, as well as the first one. As a movie reviewer, I will still give the third movie a watch when it does release in September, so that I can give my followers across social media platforms my opinion on the latest movie, and hopefully the third one will be slightly more enjoyable than the first 2 I've seen. The good thing about these movies is they are only roughly 90 minutes watches, so they are easy to watch movies. And then we move on to the 30th of August 2023, and the first movie I saw in the cinemas was The Equalizer 3. So this might be a 2.5-star review, but my actual out of 10 rating for this movie is 7 out of 10. The only reason why I gave this a 7 out of 10 rating is because the violence when the action scenes came up were really gory, and the injury details left on the victims were really good. So hats off to the makeup artists and special effects team for pulling off all the gore and special effects in the fight scenes. And even though Denzel Washington and Dakota Fanning are back together and reunited following a movie they did together 20 odd years ago called Man on Fire, I think their acting performances were really good and exceptional. However, the story itself is what fell off for me, to be honest. Had the story been better, then the star rating would have been a lot higher. And the final movie that I have watched, which I did watch at home on Netflix, was The Monkey King. Again, watched this on the 30th of August, 2023. This was a somewhat decent movie. I did enjoy the mixture of 2D animation in some parts of the movie, whilst obtaining the 3D animation throughout the movie as well. I think the voice actors did a great job, and this is one of those movies that a parent can easily put on for their kids and they would have a great time watching it. It's an easy watch as well, with this movie being a little shy of just over 90 minutes long on Netflix. And again, I gave this movie a 2-star rating over on Netflix. So that is my movies that I have watched throughout August. I have got a ton, and I mean an absolute ton, of movies that I do want to watch all throughout September, across streaming platforms and of course in cinemas as well. So I kind of counted how many movies I've watched in in August, and the movies that I've watched in August are roughly around about 45 movies across 1 month. Now, I've kind of counted how many movies I would like to watch in September or throughout September, and I'm going to safely say there's probably more movies that I'm going to be watching in September than there has been this month. So don't be at all surprised if my next movie wrap up that I do at the end of September is even longer than this one here, with a lot more reviews. I think there's like roughly around about 60, maybe 65 odd movies that I need to watch in September. Most of them are first time watches. I mean, all of the movies that I watched this month are first time watches. There will come a point where eventually I will have like reviews on rewatches that I've done, regardless whether it's a movie that's come out in the last couple of years or movies that I watched as a child growing up and stuff that I've got on my Amazon Prime Video digital store and stuff to buy and keep. But yeah, anyway, I will let you guys know in a future wrap-up video what movies are first-time watches, what movies are re-watches and stuff. Alright, I'll kind of divide it up or something into those kind of sections. But anyway, for me though, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment in the comment section down below, and if you are new around here, then feel free to hit that subscribe button to become a Stevo. I have got your next YouTube video on Monday the 4th of September 2023 at 4 PM UK time, and it's going to be a vlog of me attending Bournemouth Air Festival and showing you some of the flights and displays and all the other bits and pieces in between that as well. I will try and vlog as much footage as I can and pull it into a special weekly vlog montage for you guys to watch on Monday the 4th of September. But until then though, it's goodbye, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again in my next YouTube video.